Hi, this is Monica Packer, and you're listening to About Progress, where we are about progress made practical. With spring approaching, my to-do list rises. Clean out the mudroom, figure out who needs summer shoes and new swimsuits, put away the winter coats, prune the plants, clean out the garage, prep the garden, deep clean my home. The list gets real overwhelming real quick. And alongside it all comes this sneaky sort of pressure. The pressure to look, quote unquote, better for the upcoming swimsuit season. It's almost biological how the pressure rises within me each spring, but also it doesn't take long to look at my environment to see it's a pressure shared amongst us as women, even a pressure that is sold to us. If you too are getting more ads about weight loss, about dieting, about fitting into your cute swimsuit, I wanted to share this interview I did with Dr. Supatra Tovar for my Wise Women series, where I interview women who have specialized passions to share with you. Today, Dr. Tovar wants you to know that not only do you not need to diet this spring, but in the long run, how dieting actually harms your health far more than it helps. This episode does offer an alternative because we do want to be healthy. We do want to live long lives. For some of us, that does entail acknowledging that we need to shift things from our habits to our relationships with our body and with our food. A few weeks ago, I aired an episode with Meg Hadley on making peace with our bodies. Today, as a companion piece of sorts, Dr. Supatra Tovar is going to help you make more peace with food. Not so you can lean into your hedonistic desires of neglecting your body and your health like so many assume you will if you don't diet, but so that you can do the opposite of that. Honor your body, take care of it, and in ways that will help you live a long, healthy life, no dieting required. Dr. Supatra Tovar is one of the few licensed clinical psychologists in the world who is also a registered dietitian and fitness expert. Using nutritional psychology, Dr. Tovar has helped clients overcome eating disorders, trauma, depression, and anxiety by teaching practical techniques that work for both bodies and minds. Her client success led to her start a new advanced nutrition and emotional wellness, and also to create the groundbreaking book and online course, Deprogram Diet Culture, Rethink Your Relationship to Food, Heal Your Mind, and Live a Diet-Free Life. Dr. Tovar is licensed in California, Colorado, Illinois, and New York. That interview is coming up after a quick break for our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Air Doctor. Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors, but did you know that the indoor air we breathe can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air? I think a lot of you are coming around to that fact because I've gotten more and more messages asking what air purifier I have and if I'd recommend it, and the answer is Air Doctor, and yes, I 100% would recommend it. You can breathe easy with Air Doctor, the award-winning air purifier that eliminates 99.99% of dangerous contaminants like allergens, viruses, smoke, gases, mold spores, and more. One of my sons was recently diagnosed with more indoor allergies, and the doctor was relieved to hear we already have an air purifier. You can top that off with lots of smog days in our beautiful Salt Lake Valley, and I can tell you that the relief I have is high, both emotionally and physically, that Air Doctor is in my home. Air Doctor was voted Best Air Purifier by Newsweek, so it's no surprise that 98% of Air Doctor customers agree. Their home's air feels cleaner, safer, and healthier, and the Packer family is one of those happy customers. Unlike other purifiers, Air Doctor captures invisible particles 100 times smaller than standard HEPA filters. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code MONICA to get up to $300 off today. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee plus a 3-year warranty and $84 value free. Get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com. That's airdoctorpro.com using promo code MONICA. One of the long-standing things that has connected us as a community is the Do Something list. The first one I ever made way back in 2016 totally changed my life and actually led to this podcast. And I have heard from hundreds of women over the years from the About Progress community that the Do Something list has changed their lives too. What is it? Well, it's a way for you to prioritize your own fulfillment, to explore who you are, and all outside the pressures of goals and resolutions. If you're ready to have more hobbies, to have more creativity, to have more fun, or rest, or connection this year, whatever it is, make sure you make your own Do Something list. To help you, I have a free training that is ready for you online right now. Go to aboutprogress.com/DSL and you can sign up for my free training, which includes a video and audio workshop, resources, including a guide and examples of so many DSLs from real women of this community. Again, go to aboutprogress.com/DSL to get your free training. Dr. Supatra Tovar, welcome to About Progress.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're talking to you at a very important time of the year, and it's a pretty diet-centric time. We're getting the push, we're getting the ads, we're getting the pressure in our neighborhoods and our families. It's everywhere. Let's start by asking probably the topic you could talk about for a very long time, but I'd love to hear your immediate answer to it. And it's, why do people not just fail at diets, but it's actually the diets that are failing them?
I like to talk about it from an evolutionary lens. Our bodies are not designed to go into starvation or restriction, or more accurately, they're designed to protect us from starvation and restriction. So if you look at the nature of most diets, before the diet, you are consuming perhaps 2,400, maybe even 3,000 calories, maybe even more sometimes for some people. And most diets average around 1,200 calories, some even less than that. When we do that, the moment we go on a diet, obviously the body's like, oh, wait a second, you're giving me half the calories that I had before. So it ups your hunger hormones. The biggest one is ghrelin. And so obviously you're going to start to feel, very hungry. Your tummy's going to grumble. You're going to get lightheaded. And oftentimes in that process, you ignore it because we're told, especially by diet culture, to ignore our hunger. Just drink water, go for a walk, do anything other than listen to this hunger. That is actually where we really go wrong. Because what that does is the body gets this signal, oh, wait, they're not listening to hunger. That must mean there's no food available.
Got it.
And so when the body's thinking there's no food available, it starts to conserve everything. And so what it'll do is it'll, shed off some water. And that's like the first thing usually to go. And that is so deceptive to so many people. They're like, yay, it's working. Diet's working. I've lost weight. You've just lost water. Then what the body does is like, okay, we have muscle and fat left. And fat we have to hold on to as long as possible because those contain the juiciest amounts of calories. Let's get rid of some muscle. So then you lose some more weight and you're like, yay, I've lost weight. But really what's happened is your body has suppressed your thermogenesis. Your thermogenesis, your burning off of fat stores, is actually adaptive. It can go higher at some points and it can go lower. And in a diet, when it's restrictive, it suppresses. And so the one thing that you want to burn off in your diet is fat, and it's not being burned off. And so your body's going into this conservation mode and it's calculating how much muscle have I lost? How much fat have I lost? And it's trying to maintain those same proportions the second you go off the diet. So say you've lost 20 pounds of muscle and water on this diet. The second you go off and you start to introduce food back in, the body then goes through this, replenishing phase, and it amps up your hunger again. So it's almost as if it's uncontrollable. It's called compensatory hyperphagia, which just means to make up for what we lost before, we're going to eat a lot. Hyper is lots, phagia is eat. And so you go into this, kind of almost involuntary state where you eat as much as you can replenish what was lost before. And that's why most people after a diet shoot right back to the weight that they were before, if not gain more weight. So dieting in the way that it's presented in pretty much every aspect in diet culture, whether it's weight loss medication, whether it's a highly restricted diet or juice cleanse or whatever people are doing, is a completely pointless act because your body does not want to stay there.
Hmm.
Your body wants to go back to where it's safe. So this is why diets always fail people. Even
Hmm.
if they might have initial success, they're going to gain weight back most often.
I've heard that over the years that your body fights to stay at its size, whether
Mhm,
that's perceived healthy by us or not. It fights
mhm,
hard to stay there. It was so helpful to have the biological breakdown on why that is, though. But I also want to talk about the psychological cycle that comes
mhm,
up with dieting that I think totally goes hand in hand with why it becomes a cycle that we not only are in, but that we repeat. So
yes,
can you talk about that piece too? Like why do diets set us up to fail in terms of our relationship with food?
exactly. Well, if you look at diet culture itself, they set up food to be moral. You have good food and you have bad food. And if you look at the current state of dieting right now, protein, especially animal protein, is the star. It has the halo. It's all good. And carbs are bad. When we set this up psychologically, we tell ourselves, oh, I can't have that. That food's the devil. No, no, no. I can't have pasta. I can't have bread. No, no, no. I have to eat only this and vegetables. And what that does psychologically for us is it sets us up to have a binge. And so what we do while we're on a diet is we're thinking about this taboo food that we cannot have. Meanwhile, all the biological processes are going on trying to get us to eat them until finally we can no longer handle it or we have a quote cheat day, which I really can't stand that word. We have a
Yeah.
cheat day and we allow ourselves to, binge out on, whatever we want. This goes completely against health goals. It also will tend to make people gain weight, and it could lead them down an even more dangerous cycle of, severe disordered eating or even a, an eating disorder. I actually see a lot of people with binge eating disorder in my practice. And the one major correlation between all of them is that they come from restrictive dieting
Hmm.
until there's a point where they cannot maintain that restriction any longer and they go full on
Hmm.
into binging. But this also happens in cases with anorexia and cases with bulimia. Also, the kind of newest disorder, which is orthorexia, which is not even a DSM identified disorder, that is a complete preoccupation with foods that are clean, healthy, pure.
Yeah.
So anything that you deviate from this pure diet sets up this kind of moral battle in your head. And that's why with all of my clients, I work on food neutrality with them where we remove all labels of good or bad. And that actually is something that is so vital in stopping binging. Because if it's allowed psychologically, and you're like, I mean, a lot of people are like, what? No, wait, you
Yeah.
mean I can have pasta? I can have pasta whenever I want. It's like, yes, you can. And I want you to listen to your body. And I want you to be the one, not a diet, to tell yourself when you've had enough.
Hmm.
And when people are empowered in this way and they realize they can have this food whenever they want, and they really start to listen to their bodies actually tell them, that's okay for like a couple bites. Like that was really delicious. But after 10, I don't really feel that good. If you're really tuning in and listening to your body, then what happens is it opens up this entire world of food and freedom
Hmm.
with food, and so many disordered eating symptoms abate.
I'm glad you started with the biological and then we were able to talk about the psychological because I think it's so easy to actually dismiss the biological part. I think we
Mhm.
just tend to, and in my experience, and of course, being a woman who works with other women a lot, that what we tend to do is we blame ourselves instead. Where it's
Totally.
not so much like that food is bad, it's more like I am bad. So that's where I think we missed the boat really is just is seeing like the biology is trying to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to work hand in hand with our bodies
Mm-hmm.
instead of trying to always compete against that.
Yes. And I think that speaks to the greater sociological forces that come in
Hmm.
from diet culture. And that's the reason why I titled my book Deprogram Diet Culture, because I think the influence that we see from outside of our homes in diet culture, also kind of the crazy mixed messaging that we see from advertising from food, especially advertising towards children,
Mm-hmm.
when we're inundated with those external influences, we are bombarded with the messaging that we are never going to be good enough, will
Mm-hmm.
never be thin enough, and boy, you better watch out or you're going to be fat shamed. There are two biases. One is lookism and one is weightism. And they are so pervasive in our country. And that is what is driving perfectionism, along with what we receive from home. Oftentimes, people who are perfectionists come from, a very highly controlled environment or a very chaotic environment. It's usually one or the other.
Hmm.
And the strive for perfectionism oftentimes is about pleasing a parent that is basically unable to be pleased. It's about living up to the family's standards as well as societal standards. We've got so many pressures against us, influencing us to diet, but often and most horribly in a very destructive way for our bodies.
You brought up two terms I haven't heard before, lookism and weightism. What's the
Mhm.
difference between those two?
So lookism is the unhealthy pursuit of the thin ideal. And you can see that the ideal has changed drastically over time. Actually, even before the Industrial Revolution, it was more advantageous and more coveted to be overweight. That meant you had money. That
Mm.
meant you had access to better food and health care. Industrial Revolution comes along and it's all about everything becoming more equal because people were able to get food in a similar way to rich people. So then rich people are like, oh, wait, I got to distinguish myself from these people. That's when the hourglass figure came in and the svelte look of that time. And it just got more and more so, especially with the advent of film and TV and, people watching the images of these, very svelte, thin people. And it's become what it is today, which is, thin or emaciation as the ideal. That's lookism. Weightism is basically fat shaming or fat phobia. And if you look at the pervasiveness of this bias, it's more widely accepted than racism or
Mhm.
sexism
Wow.
to be, discriminating against somebody who's overweight, to ridicule them in person, to talk about their weight to them. And when we look at the stigma that comes from weightism, it is so incredibly damaging. It actually makes people who are overweight or considered overweight, considered obese, tend to binge out even more, eat more calories once they've been subject to this stigma. If you consider all of the messaging that's coming their way from, weight stigma and all the messaging that's coming their way from diet culture, they are just inundated with this horrible negative messaging. And that's why I think it is so vital that we learn how to deprogram ourselves out of it and reject it completely.
This podcast is sponsored by Go Pure Beauty. You may already know this about me, but I love skincare. I have been so hyper diligent about taking care of my face since my early 20s, thanks to a great dermatologist I happened to visit at the time. But guess what I forgot about for most of those years? My neck. Did you forget too? The skin on your neck is thinner, more delicate, and less oily than facial skin, so it requires special care. That's why Go Pure Beauty developed their revolutionary Tighten and Lift Neck Cream. Powered by clinically proven active ingredients, this advanced formula is designed to visibly firm, smooth, and rejuvenate the delicate skin on your neck and chest in as little as 4 to 8 weeks. I've been using the Tighten and Lift Neck Cream, and I've been loving it. The silky texture is so nice. My very sensitive skin has responded to it very well. And that's thanks to it being paraben and sulfate free and made without harsh chemicals. For a limited time, our listeners get 25% off GoPure with code PROGRESS at checkout. And GoPure isn't just about your neck. They have a full line of science-backed skin and body care to brighten, hydrate, and restore your glow from head to toe. From powerful vitamin C serums to deeply hydrating retinol moisturizers, every product is packed with clean, effective ingredients that deliver real results. With over 1 million jars sold, this beauty secret is no longer a secret. For a limited time, our listeners get 25% off GoPure with code PROGRESS at checkout. Just head to gopurebeauty.com/progress, use code PROGRESS, and you're all set. And after you buy, do us a favor. When they ask where you heard about GoPure, tell them it was from our show. For years, I have been teaching women how to do habits differently. I've been so grateful to see the concepts that have changed the most for you, with responses from women in our community like, "You're changing the habit game for all of us, and this is so needed, and you should write a book on this." Well, guess what? I am. And I'm already so eager for you to get your hands on it, hopefully early 2026. And since I can't share the title yet, and since I'm very likely to self-publish, I need a committee of gal pals, if you will, like you, who are ready to be my early test readers, to pre-order the book, and to act as grassroots publicists the moment each of those steps are made ready. Would you like to be on that book launch committee? Get on the list by going to aboutprogress.com/book committee. Even if you just want to be first in the know with any book news, that's where you sign up. Again, go to aboutprogress.com/book committee. It's in the show notes for you. I can't wait to share as much as I can with you along the way, and I'm already so grateful for your support. This all goes into the cycle that we were talking about earlier, both the biological and psychological. It's interesting to me that Lookism and Weightism are so internalized and how they act as, flames uh, to help with that burning fire already that's in existence, or maybe it's more wood. It's just let's take more wood and put it all to the burning fire already. So I want to speak now to the women who are ready to jump out of that fire and they want a different way. They can see how much they've internalized so much in the messaging and our family cultures out there, and they want a different way, and they're ready to reprogram or deprogram, really, that relationship into
Mhm.
a new one. First, can you paint the picture of what they're even aiming for? Like, what should their relationship be with food and their body and themselves? It seems also
Yes.
connected to me.
I think I can really simplify it and say it goes from disempowerment to empowerment. When we are just kind of operating, and most of us operate on autopilot when it comes to these things, we're inundated with messaging. And that messaging is coming from social media, it's coming from advertisements, it's coming from the society around us and our closest friends and family. That's diet culture.
Okay.
So we see this especially in our social media. So the disempowering messaging is what I want people to deprogram themselves from. So I think it's about opening up our eyes, becoming objective about whatever's around us, and discerning, is this messaging coming from diet culture, and do I need to have this in my life? So I have people who come to me, they do a complete social media audit.
Yeah.
They look at their social media and I have them, scroll through. If they're finding anything that makes them feel terrible about themselves, makes them want to diet, makes them think that they have to exercise or look like this person, I want them to ask the question, how does this make me feel? And most often it's not good enough, worthless, too fat, blah, 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 blah. That's when I'd say, you can hide that. You can block it. You can unfollow it. You don't have to see that. What do you like to see? What empowers you? What makes you feel good? I mean, my social media is basically like puppies and kittens and goats and,
Yeah.
just really influential, amazing, inspirational people. And so when I go on social media, I'm inspired or I'm happy or I laugh, right? We can curate our social media
Mm.
to be empowering for us, to inspire us to be our best selves. Then I have people really try to reject advertising in all of its forms. Thank goodness we have, streaming services. We don't necessarily have to watch it, but certainly if a commercial comes on, pick up some, hobby, go start knitting something, play the ukulele, anything
Mm.
other than watching that commercial, because that commercial is designed to make you feel like you're not good enough. And most especially, please stop subscribing to fashion magazines. I'm sorry, fashion magazines. I know you need to sell stuff, but what you sell makes people feel terrible about themselves.
Mhm.
And maybe if you are a fashion magazine executive listening to this, you can maybe start to gear your advertising towards products that actually serve us, not the company. So that's another area that they can discern and try to eliminate this influence. Another area is toxic people. Now, we cannot obviously eliminate all these people from our lives. We have family members, some that, will try to convince us to diet, or, poking at our fat or whatever it is, or
Mhm.
friends,
Yeah.
coworkers around us who really inundate us with this message. That's where boundaries come into play. Or switching the subject, whatever you can do to keep that kind of messaging away from you is what you do to take out the disempowerment. And then is the lovely part of empowering. That's reformulating your social media feed, figuring out ways to spend your time that actually serve you, and then going inside. It is so empowering to start to listen to your body, because your body tells you everything. And your body, unlike some of the thoughts that you have developed in your mind, your body is always for you. Your body is always telling you exactly what it needs. And here's the key, perfectionists. We have been told that hunger is bad. Hunger is the most important thing that you can listen to when it comes to your body weight. If your body is telling you it's hungry, it's saying it needs nutrients. It's saying it's depleted. And so if you go in and you just close your eyes and you ask your body what it needs, and you wait softly for the answer, and especially if you're doing this when you're not feeling emotional, negative in any way, or, out of sorts or stressed, your body will give you an image. Big juicy salad, big bowl of pasta, a sandwich. It'll tell you what it needs. And most often, you guys, what it needs are carbohydrates. And that's what we're told we're not supposed to eat. But your body runs mainly on carbohydrates. And if you're giving your body, what it's telling you, and it's usually stuff that's close to the ground. Usually when you're listening to your body, it's stuff that's close to the ground. When you honor that, you tell your body you're safe. When your body feels safe, then you can go into your parasympathetic nervous system, or your rest and digest nervous system, especially if you're eating slowly and mindfully, and your mealtime is stress free. Then your body's like, oh, you guys, she's safe. She's giving us what we need. Woo woo. And everything starts to turn on. Your thermogenesis turns on, your digestion turns on. And when you're listening for that moment when you're no longer hungry, that's also telling your body you're safe. It's not like, oh gosh, we're getting way too much weight, or not enough, not enough. It's like, oh, you just had enough. Their body also feels safe. Your hunger and your fullness hormones are in balance. And then that's when your body can do the magic of processing all of this food, using the nutrients it needs, getting rid of what it doesn't need. Oftentimes, what happens is when you start to listen to your body, when you really start to honor it instead of fight against it, you start to love your body, which I think is a really difficult thing for a lot of people, especially if they've struggled with being overweight. Once they start to connect with their body, they start to realize all of the amazing things their body does. They start to appreciate exactly how the body's been trying to protect them all along. And the more you start to love your body, the more your body starts to respond. So that's the starting off point.
So I want to talk more about mindful eating, because when I hear that word, I'm sure a lot of women are like me, that feels like, oh, that means clean eating or eating perfectly or obeying the rules. Now, what does mindful eating look like?
Yeah. Mindfulness is like my favorite thing on the planet. And I think a lot of people don't really fully understand what that means. The term gets tossed around so much. But the kind of accepted definition is an open-hearted, non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. So when we apply that to food, it's an open-hearted, non-judgmental awareness of our food. Now, how do you attain this awareness? It's through your senses. So general mindfulness, say we're actually mindful right now because we're so focused on each other, but when you look around your room, you just note what you see. You note what you hear. You note what you're smelling, what you're feeling, what you're tasting. And when we do that, and you actually just do that and focus on your breath and focus on the area around you, you realize how quiet and peaceful and beautiful the present moment is. You can easily do this with your food. You take a moment with your food, observe it, look at the colors, look at how it's been made, look at how beautiful it is. You smell the aroma of your food. You're listening to the ambient sounds of the room. You are feeling the fork in your hand, the napkin, the table in front of you. And finally, you taste. And you just allow yourself to taste your food. It is simply being present with your food and eating slowly enough that your body can register what's going in it. It is, I think, one of the most loving acts. Now, does it have to take a half an hour? I know everybody's so busy. And most people, they'll turn on the TV or they'll doom scroll on their phone or they're checking their social media. They're not present with their food. When you're actually present with your food, that's when your body can give you all the signals that you need and tell you exactly when you've had enough. I mean, it takes about 20 minutes for the mind to register the presence of food in your stomach. If you're eating in 5 minutes, your body actually doesn't have that chance to catch up. But if you eat slowly enough and mindfully enough, then your body does have that time. And it's just a much more pleasant experience. It brings back the love and the joy of food because the only reason why we're here, you guys, is because there's food.
Hmm.
We're alive because of food. And when you really get good at it, your body gives you all sorts of signals as to which food it loves the best. But most people really respond. Their bodies are biologically designed to have food this closer to the ground. And you'll see the difference in your body when you're actually paying attention.
And I think this may help people understand the concept of intuitive eating better because I think it's one of those things you hear and then you think, oh, it means you eat, you could, the most common thing I hear is I would eat brownies all day. And the truth is when you're actually listening to your body, you won't want brownies all day. You won't. But it requires honestly a trust fall. I do want to give some hope to women who are like, I want to do this, but it's scary.
Yes.
I don't know. How do I move through this with that fear? What do you say about that fear?
At first, everyone, especially when you make food neutral, gets scared. They are so afraid that if it's not taboo, that they will binge. And some people may go a little bit overboard for a moment and then realize, okay, well, if this is something I can always have, how did I feel when I went overboard? And like you said, people, oh, I would eat brownies all day. No, no, no. No. When you are really listening to your body tells you the exact moment when it's enough. And that actually is the most freeing moment of all. Because for most people, when they allow and they're not eating emotionally, they're just eating because they're hungry. And that is a very important distinction, y'all. You have to really learn how to discern between mindless eating, emotional eating, and eating for hunger. And learning how to address your emotional needs in a different way. Once you actually start to listen to your body is not going to respond well if you overconsume something. So it's about finding for yourself the foods that fuel you the best. And that's why it can be so empowering. You can experiment. You can go outside of, your norms, your no carb norms. If you just look at just as an aside, like all of the blue zones, the areas where they have the highest proportion of centenarians in the world, all of them have one major thing in common, in that the majority of their diet is carbohydrates.
Hmm. Like
The
in
majority.
Japan, right? Like rice.
Japan,
Mm-hmm.
rice, all of they have a beautiful purple sweet potato
Oh,
that is like
yes.
everything to them.
Uh-huh.
So many vegetables, so many fruits, so much soy, so much seaweed. Sardinia and Icaria, Italy, and Icaria, Greece. They live off of bread and pasta. That is like, if your meal does not have bread, they're like, that is not a meal.
Hmm.
And they're majority carbohydrates. Same with Nicoya Peninsula and Costa Rica. Same with Loma Linda. So we have to unlearn a lot of lies that were presented to us. It is not actually healthy to make most of your meal protein, especially animal protein. It is not actually good for the body. The body thrives on carbohydrates, especially carbohydrates that are whole. So when you break out of all of those lies, it can feel a little scary.
Hmm.
It can feel like you are, kind of treading into dangerous territory. I just invite you to relax, take some deep breaths, do a mindfulness exercise right before you're about to eat. Just become aware of all your senses and be present with your food. Look at it for its beauty, its color, what it's containing, how it smells, and eat slowly and allow yourself to experience it. And once you do, the fear will start to abate. You will start to learn how to trust yourself. And that is the goal for everyone that I have coming into my practice. I want them to be their own best expert. I don't want them to have to go to anyone for diet advice, food advice, anything. I want them to be listening to themselves, because all of us have the answers inside.
So much of what you've described as a relationship of peace and freedom, safety was such a strong word. And I see what that is on the other side. And if someone's ready to move towards that, I would just add to what you said, that it's a relationship and it's going to take time, and it's okay to be scared. Just like any vulnerable relationship you're ready to lean into,
Yeah.
you have a choice. And if
Mhm.
it's one you can lean into and make, I think what's on the other side is going to be so worth the effort.
So empowering.
Yeah.
We, I think, are inundated with messaging that we don't have power.
Mm,
And we have all of the power inside of us.
beautiful. Well, I always end with one final question. Before we do that, where should people go if they want to learn more from you, including your book and your podcast?
Sure. So for that, I have an educational company. It's called ANEW, and it stands for Advanced Nutrition and Emotional Wellness. And the website is anew-insight.com, ANEW-insight.com. You can go there for information about the book. You can take the course. I also have my podcast, which is the ANEW Insight Podcast, and that you can find information on there. And if you want to book me to speak, you can do that through there. And if you are in Colorado, California, Illinois, soon for me, New York, those are the areas that I'm licensed. I'm located in California. You can come to me for therapy. Or if you want coaching, you can go through anew-insight.com for me. My practice website, drsupatratovar.com, which is DRSUPATRATOVAR.com.
Great. We'll be sure to link to those in the show notes. And our final question, and we always learn so much in these interviews, and we need one small way we can take action. So what would that be?
One small way that you can take action today is increase your awareness. All I want everyone to do is to look around them at the influences in their lives and just discern, is this good for me? Is this not good for me? Because that's the starting off point. to going into a healthier relationship with yourself is learning how to ask yourself.
Beautiful. Well, Dr. Tovar, this was an incredible conversation. I so appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Okay, I'll stop the recording here. I hope this episode gave you the hug and kick in the pants you need to grow. We've made sure to link to everything Dr. Supatra Tovar so you can check her out and the other resources she has to share with you. Again, I highly encourage you to listen to an episode a few weeks ago with Meg Hadley. Also on Monday, I'm going to be sharing a preview of an episode I recorded for More Personal, my private premium Always Ad Free podcast, where I begin my deep dive on GLP-1s. It's a lot more of a nuanced deep dive than you may think, considering my own relationship with healing from eating disorders. I'm honestly glad that in preparing the deep dive episodes for More Personal, I was able to open my mind up and learn a lot more about these drugs. So stay tuned to listen to that. And if you want access to all of that material now, sign up as a member of the Supporters Club at the Bestie or Ride or Die levels. You can do that at aboutprogress.com/support. Remember, you can always support the show for free. Make sure you leave a rating and review, follow the show, share it with a friend, and subscribe and watch on YouTube, which is especially important right now. Thank you so much for listening. Now go and do something with what you learned today.